Everybody, it's Glenn, Red Dog Motorsports. We're back out in the shop once again. We're always out here. Our favorite place to be. Today's video, we're going to be working back on what I keep calling the moose knuckle. I think the owner actually calls it moose. But it's the big white Dodge that's been in here for a bunch of AEV stuff. And today's really no different. We're going to be installing the AEV Raised Air Intake, and I'll explain that name here in just a minute. But I took everything out of the box. You get what is basically a snorkel, even though AEV's not calling it that. It's a pretty nice, well-formed piece. Much like all of their plastics, I haven't had any real issues with them. They seem to be well made. You get a small parts box that comes inside with the snorkel itself. It has the horsepower sticker, as well as some double-sided foam pieces, a little retaining key. I think this nut goes to the antenna. You get a band clamp, just a couple of bolts and a couple of washers, not a lot. Looks like 4 and 4, a couple of well nuts, so not much. And most importantly, this here piece of paper is a template which shows you where to cut the big hole that goes in here. There's a whole entire process we're going to go through with using this. It's going to be very important to do it right so that our hole comes out like it needs to be. And then you get another box that's shipped separately that has the ram air section in it. This goes on the top of our intake. You get a foam seal piece, and you get a band, a removable band for clamping this on. You can also purchase separately a dust eliminator cap. If you operate in a very dusty environment like the desert or something like that, or even Colorado, some of those places have really dusty roads. If you're spending a lot of time overlanding on them, you may want to go with the dust remover top. I forget what the exact name of it is. It's shown on here. High dust filtration system. You may want to go with that instead of the ram air. Back to why this is called a raised air intake. So this is a 2018 truck, the 5th gen model. Some of them have from the factory the actuated air system on the truck itself. Because of that, when this is on there, the system's never 100% waterproof, and thus you can't call this a snorkel. Snorkel, everything below the intake of the snorkel should be waterproof to the point that in a high forward situation, water's washing up over everything. Anything below this point, you shouldn't get any water intrusion. Since the actuated system, air system, is still effective and part of the system, you're going to get water in it. You could go in there, remove that system, and block it off and seal it to the point that everything from the turbo intake all the way back to the ram air intake up here is sealed, and then this would become a snorkel. I don't believe it has any holes in it other than up there where it would leak. It has a couple of nut certs in it. Typically those are sealed. So you would have to make sure that this connection to the tubing that goes up to the air box is sealed as well. So at any rate, that's kind of just a brief explanation. So first thing we're gonna do is we're gonna have to remove the inner fender liner. I gotta get up, and once the inner fender liner is removed, we will remove the antenna. There's a connection inside that needs to be done, a quick connection underneath, and it comes off. It's pretty easy. Once that's done, that gives us the ability to lay our template up, because the antenna hole is used as the index for the paper template. From there, we'll mark and whatnot all of our holes that are going to need to be hole sawed in it. Then we'll get out the body saw and connect the dots, and that will create the hole for this. Then we have to create a new hole for the new antenna location, so that's going to involve a hole and some other parts. It's just round circle hole. It's got some wings on it. So once that's all made, it's simply a matter of putting this in there, connecting it to the air tube that goes to the air box. To do that, we have to pull the not the headlight, we've got to pull the fender out some, and then to gain access to all of the nut certs on the back of this and whatnot. And then we have to drill 2 holes up in the A pillar to install some well nuts, so that the upper portion up here, you can see the holes probably right there, those have to be connected up top by the door. So, in the windshield door, in between the door and the windshield. So that's what we got going on. So let's get on it. And by the way, I'm not going to mention names, sorry, but right now, currently the truck is out of commission. You can see it's sitting here on jack stands. We had mentioned before we were going to be working with the links. We needed to push the axle forward a little bit. He's running a bigger tire than the original AEV system said you could run. So he's got a rock crawler suspension in there, but the links themselves weren't long enough. So we needed some longer rod ends. We ordered them, and the company sent us three that were incorrect. So our bolt holes and all that. Bolt holes and bolts didn't work out. They were too small. The bolt holes on the rod ends, that is. So unable to drill them out, unable to do anything with them. So the company is shipping us new ones. I don't mention names and something like that. You know, it's one thing to mention the name of a company that is putting out a product that's inferior or misadvertising it or something. I'm willing to mention a name then to help protect other people or give other people the opportunity to not buy that product and get ripped off. But if a company makes a mistake, well, we all make mistakes, and they're getting out right away and fixing it. It's an inconvenience, but things happen. And you know, anytime I make a mistake, I always want to be forgiven. I don't want to be put to the coals over it, so not going to do that to them. They're taking care of the problem. All right, with that, let's get installing that snorkel. All right, arts and crafts time. I've got the template here. I don't know if you guys can see that per se, but I can't really tell on the way the camera is, but they give us some cut lines here. They give us a scale to make sure that you can measure it, make sure that it's printed out. They do provide this online, so if you have a printer that'll print 11 by 17, if you lose this, damage it or something, you can print it back out. I don't have a printer that size. Mine will only do legal, so can't mess this up. But we need to cut out the hole, so I'll have to trace it with a razor knife, probably put a new blade in it before I do. This is where the antenna is. I've already removed it off the truck, so we use that as the alignment, and then this gives us a couple of other alignment locations. We'll tape it up there, and if you can't see these, I'm sorry, but then they've got some locations here where you can use your center punch. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6, 7, 8, Did I count that right? Yeah, 8 for the main hole. And then once those are marked, then we can drill and then use the 1-inch hole saw to cut bigger holes. And then we just will trace, probably use a straight edge marker, that kind of thing. And then we can cut it with a body saw, grinder, whatever, combination of them to get the main hole cut out. These ones are where the bolt holes are going to go. We already showed you on the back of the unit over there. And then we got to drill a couple of small ones. 1, 2, 3, looks like 4. And then just use a file and whatnot to combine them all to make the new antenna hole. And then after that, it's just a matter of connecting some stuff. So let's get on it. Well, that was awesome. Somehow I managed to switch the GoPro over to photos. So when I thought I was hitting record, I took a picture of myself. I'm pretty. What can I say? All right. But at any rate, even though I gave you guys a nice dialogue and all of that, you missed out on it. So the cut lines that we did over here with the scissors align with the edges of the fender. And then we taped it all down. Make sure to tape it down to conform to the curve. If you tape it so that it's slightly straight or a little tight, you'll move these higher or lower than what you need. So make sure that you get this nice and conform. It shouldn't have a bunch of slack in it. It should just lay flat on there. I was mentioning, and you guys weren't paying attention because of my photo mishap, you could conceivably use some spray adhesive or something and glue this down to make sure it doesn't move in lieu of using the tape, as long as you have the proper cleaner to clean the glue off. Hot glue gun would work too. You could just hot glue some points on it, glue it down, and call it good. Here you can see our old antenna hole that's used as an alignment mark, and then here's where our new one's going to be. So let me go through and start punching these holes with my hole punch, and then we'll probably use the hammer and punch to get a deeper one. I'll use one to mark it, one to get her a little better, and then we'll hole saw these, drill those. We'll drill these. We'll probably just use a step bit for these, and same thing with that. And then yeah, we'll cut a big hole in the fender. Should be cool. And by the way, this with the fenders from AEV is a huge pain in the butt, because these rivets are semi-permanent all the way around. So removing the entire inner liner doesn't quite work. So gonna be a pain in the butt. I'm gonna have to take this tire off so that I can get back in there behind it to look this way and get my hands and everything up in here to make the connections to the hose that sits in this area, so that when I slide the high ram intake in there, I can connect them. So it should be fun. Gonna be awesome. All right, so I just decided to go ahead and drill the template in place. I could, there's no reason that I couldn't take it off and then mark each point as to what size hole it needs to be, and avoid any damage to the template. But once I've drilled one hole, we're pretty much there. You're already gone. So this way, I'll just drill them out. Just using step bit. Nice thin sheet metal, works real well, rather than trying to deal with changing all the kinds of different drill bits, you know, because for like these, we would have to go, we'll have to do 1/4 inch and then hole saw, and then, so we'd have to do all 5 quarter inch holes and then hole saw holes. Hole saws tend to walk around, they tend to wobble a little bit, at least the cheap ones I use. So, I do have a brand new big step bit that will get us up to the 1 inch size that we need. So I'll start it with the little one and then move up to the bigger one. That should give us nice big holes here. And then I haven't decided whether we're going to use the grinder or the body saw to get the rest of this opening done. Might use the grinder. It puts a little bit of heat into it, so you got to be careful with it. But I don't know. We'll see. The body saw, if I use the body saw, I got to tape it off to make sure that it doesn't scratch the paint more than we have to. Then we'll have to coat all the edges. But anyway, let's continue on. Enough talking. We need action. And it's only slightly nerve-wracking to go and cut this big of a hole into something. Now for me, I've replaced this fender on other trucks before, repainted them and stuff. Not a big deal. They're pretty easy to work with. Probably the hardest part's removing all the interior stuff off of it. Battery tray and whatnot has to come out if you want to remove it. So we'll see. Now you do want to be careful up here. This is pretty close to the underlying structure, so you can't go driving in too deep on this one. May have to unbolt it and pull it out. There's couple of bolts up here. I want to say there's one over here and something in here. It's been a little bit, but you don't want to just drill this one and this one just in there. And get the underlying structure. It'll disrupt your waterproofing to the interior of the cab, so keep that in mind. So I'm not even sure that we'll be able to get it with this one. This one may be shallow enough to get it. I'll have to take a look at these two. I need to make sure before we go too far that I can do these like I want. Might be better to do it with the hole saw, because that I can actually keep the bit pretty shallow and get these done without it being too big of an issue. These down here aren't a problem, not these two, but these four. So it's just those upper two. So let's take a look at that and see where we're at. Okay, as you can see in the time lapse, we cut our big hole, did all of that. I'm now working on getting the antenna hole finished up. So let me bring you in a little closer. And if you hear gunshots in the background, that's not gunshots. Those are acorns falling on the metal roof in the top of the Connex over here. All right, so I drilled the holes. used a combination of hole saw for these up here so we didn't hit the substructure, and then down here I used the step bit. We filed the edges, we've cleaned the back sides of them. Still need to paint it for rust protection. I've got the basics of this hole done. One of the things I did do was I took the old sheet and kind of traced out the pattern. It needs a little bit more work. I need to take this side and round it out a little bit more. As you can see, maybe on the bottom of this, there's a little hook. That little hook needs to grab right here, and that will support this from falling down, so that this nut and plastic, all it's doing is keeping the antenna up vertical. So maybe use the air grinder to take a little bit more. I've used a combination of the drill bits, body saw, and air grinder with a carbide tip to get it opened up to this point, and then we're using a file to finish it. So let me get this opened up a little bit more so that this will fit in there. It's just a little too tight up here. You can see we're hitting up in the top. So I open that up a little bit. She should slide right in. We can get that rust protected, and then get the antenna back on it. And then we can rust protect this. The fender does have to come away from the body a bit, so I got to open the hood and get there's a bunch of different bolts up in this area so that the top can come out. Once that happens, we can slide the ram air intake in there so that we can then mark our holes up top for the 2 well nuts that go up there. And then once that's done and those are drilled, they get drilled to 1/2 inch. Once those are drilled, and you got to use a drill bit for those, no ifs, ands, or buts about it, because if you go in too deep, you're definitely going to be inside the cab. So we'll get that done, and then it's just a matter of bolting everything up. That foam piece, it goes inside. You got to remove the air box and install it up here in the front. So we'll get that done. That's basically going to be about it after that. It's just a matter of finishing up, getting everything bolted up against the body. And then I think I'll go down and work on drilling the rest of the holes for the arms. I think I explained to you we had that issue with incorrect parts. But if I get all the holes drilled and everything, then when the arms, or when the proper parts get in here, it's just a matter of putting them on the arms, bolting it up and getting the proper angles for the pinion and caster angles, that kind of thing. Caster, camber. I always mix caster and camber up. I don't know why. I mix the names up. I understand what each one of them does, but I'm always throwing them out the wrong name. At any rate, that's where we're at. Let's get on it. All right, we have filed and ground until it stays up here by itself. So now we'll install the plastic piece. It goes down next. And then this little nut goes on it. And earlier I showed you this piece. It goes to this. Let's see if I can show you. You can see down here. Yeah, let's put it up here. A little better. The light's not the greatest. But at any rate, these 3 little pieces line up here, and it allows you to put a wrench on it, or in my case, a crescent wrench, and install it and take it off. Pretty neat, rather than grabbing it with slip joints, which I've always done. This is a pretty cool little thing. Hopefully I get to keep it, because I do this quite often. So, at any rate, there we go. I'm gonna get that on, and then, oh wait, before I do that, I guess I better get some rust proofing on it. So, let me do that. All right, let's give you an update on where we're at. So, I ended up having to remove the rivets that hold this liner on. We did get it unbolted, so it does come out. I can't yank on it right now. There's a tab back here, but at any rate, I can pull the top of this out. That's how you have to make room to slide the unit in there. You can see we've got the big hole. We've got the 2 attachment holes. Our antenna is back in place. And then up here, we have our 2 holes drilled with our well nuts already in them. These are just a rubber nut. There's a threaded portion on the end, and as you tighten up the bolt, it compresses that rubber part in between the threaded section and collapses. A lot like a riv nut, with the exception that whereas a riv nut is solid, this allows for some vibration. And water sealing. That's the other thing it does. I've painted all the edges. We just ended up using a paint marker. So now I need to probably take out a couple more rivets. I need to be able to get to the hosing. So we're going to take those out. And then, and I did verify I do have some to replace it. And then we will open the door up. I'll insert the high ram intake. It's not a high ram, is it? Raised air intake. They can't use high ram, I bet, because that's Banks's information, or that's the name for his intake. So I bet you that's why they had to go with raised instead of high ram. But at any rate, I digress. We'll get that stuffed in there. We can get it now bolted up. We're going to Loctite the bolts, top and bottom. We'll get the hose connected to the end of it. Get the hose clamp on that. And then from there, we bolt the fender back up and then make sure it's all aligned, get all them bolts back in. Then we can go up and do the air box and the additional seal that is there for that. And I think that would be about it. That's gonna wrap. Oh, we'll put the top on it, the little cap on the top. So let's get going. Okay, I've got the fender back on. So we got all the bolts up here tightened up, and you can see I've got them pushed all back so that everything went back in the original position. You can see that our body line here looks good all the way up. So that all came back out like it should be. Intake is on, no holes are showing. That's a plus. Antenna is up. I think I need to tighten it a little bit more, a little bit wobble in it. We've got this on. I still need to clip the extra right there, but it's on there nice and solid. Door opens up and misses it. Also a plus. And now we're up here. I still have the inner fender to do, by the way. I just got one clamp inside. We got to redo these rivets on the outside and then just install the screws in the back. So that won't take but a minute. I'll show you what we're doing up here on the air box. I mentioned before there was a seal, not a land seal, but a rubber seal, foam seal. But at any rate, let's see if I can light it up here. That one right there, around that section, we need to take that foam off and put this one. I'm not sure why. Don't know that it matters. But at any rate, that's what they say, so that's what we do. So I'm gonna peel that off, clean it up, reinstall this one, and then put the whole air box back in. You know, looking at this, I would think that if you have active air intake, you could swap this out for like a air box from a 2011 and get rid of some of this, but, or I guess you really can't do that because then you lose this section of it. But you could remove all of this, seal this up, seal that hole up, and probably get it to where you need to be so you could have a snorkel. I think it would take some work though. I don't think it's gonna be as simple as just wham bam, thank you ma'am. But at any rate, let me put this seal on it and then we can pretty much be done. All right, we're done. Everything's back together. Sun's in the way, sorry. But looks good, I like it. So I'm gonna wrap up this portion of the video. I am gonna wait to do the final bit until we fix these joints underneath. That way you can see how they came out, since I mentioned them. Don't wanna leave you hanging. So with that, once we complete that, we'll be done. All right, everybody. I said I'd close this video out when I got Moose here all back together. We did get everything moved around. We got the final links in. I believe I've got a picture of it, hopefully, to show you the difference between the two. The wheel is now more centered. My tape here is so that I can show the owner. We can hang a string along and I can show him how much we moved, because he was involved in the process when we were talking about where to get it. You can see down here the tire was catching and now it doesn't. We did get the spacers now in the drive shaft, and all the new links are in here. I've got them marked. You can see the springs have quite a bit of bend to them. The ones from AEV, the prospectors that they designed, also have a bit of that in it because of how far you push the axle forward. Overall, it works. I'm a little concerned because I can't fully stuff it. I don't have anything tall enough, the length of the vehicle and everything, how big it is. I don't have anything like this high that I can really get the wheel up on and make sure that it complete stuff, it doesn't hit. Eyeball looks okay, but eyeball can be wrong when you're flexing frames and things move in ways that you don't 100% expect. And so sometimes what looks like a clear by a 1/4 inch will rub, or worse, when everything else flexes in it. That's why a lot of times flexing with a forklift or something just doesn't give you quite a good enough indication of what's going on. But at any rate, we're done. We got it together. Thank you for watching this video. Hopefully you made it to the end. Please like, subscribe, tell a friend. It's all free. You can't have too many YouTube channels, and well, you just can't have too many. I mean, you just really can't. And occasionally I put out something pretty good. So look forward to seeing you on the next one, and y'all have a good one.